Hi guys, I'm Whitney and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a really exciting video for you. I have 10 books right here that are mind-blowing books. To just add a little extra spice, instead of just telling you about the books, I want to tell you why these books blew my mind. Now that means I have to tell you two disclaimers. The first thing is I have to cover some spoilers here. I can't tell you how mind-blowing these books are if you don't know what happened. So the second disclaimer is that the mind-blowing aspect of these books are maybe different for every single person. Remember that this is just what blew my mind about the book, and what happened with you might be totally different. And that's okay. That's the beauty of reading. We all have different experiences. Now, I did try to narrow down to one particular idea or concept for each book, which was really hard, by the way. I'm going to tell you that all of these books probably have more than one thing, but these were the things that I had encountered never before, or they were the thing that blew my mind about it. Let's get into these 10 books. The first book on my list is going to be Snow Crash. Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson is one of my all-time favorite science fiction nostalgic books, and the thing that made me so impressed with this book is maybe something that is a little juvenile to everybody else. And that is, this is the very first book that ever introduced me to the fact that religion and also the mafia or crime are on the same playing field as government in terms of social control. Now, there's so many things to love about Snow Crash, and I have to say that at the time, this was the best 7 pages of any novel I had ever read, because I read it in college, and I have yet to reread this book because I typically don't do rereads. But I do plan on doing a reread of this book later in the year. However, the thing that I remember the most about it is this idea. This concept of religion as social control and crime as social control, and putting them on the same level as government. Oof, I don't want to do that one next, so we're going to do this one instead. The next on this list is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. There are so many little mind-blowing things in this book that it equals a big mind-blowing thing, but the biggest mind-blowing thing about this book is going to be, it sounds a little easy and arbitrary, but in the first couple of chapters, we're introduced to an alien first contact that is fungal. They are called astrophage, and I think that the actual concept of astrophage is incredibly intriguing. I really found that astrophage blew my mind in terms of its realistic depiction of first contact. What makes us think that first contact is going to be sentient? I mean, does it make for a better book? Yeah, maybe. But the fact that first contact here was with a plant/fungus is really interesting, and I feel like it's a lot more practical than a lot of other first contacts. Now, in case that blows you off of this book, I gotta tell you, there's a lot more awesome comments that are coming in this book. There's a lot of other things that I absolutely loved about this novel, including Alien Second Contact. Oh, check that out. And Alien Second Contact, specifically about how do you communicate and all the nitty-gritty details of that, really blew my mind in this book. So I know it has to, I'm sorry, but there's so many things to love about this book. I really, really like it. All right, the next book on my list is Speaker for the Dead by Orson Scott Card. This book is actually the second in the series. Ender's Game comes first, so you have to read Ender's Game to really fully appreciate this book, so know that in advance. The thing about this book that blew my mind the most was this idea of a redemption arc. Now, that doesn't sound that great, I get it, but the fact that this book had the entire human species who knows that they made a mistake in the first book, and they're trying to redeem themselves. They're trying not to make the same mistake twice. So what do? They overcompensate and they almost make another mistake. Or do they? The fact that this redemption arc is also reflected in Ender's individual experiences and his redemption arc is also really an intriguing one. It gives us both a personal and a broad view of redemption in such a way that, oh my gosh, this novel really has so much to talk about. It blew my mind. The next book on this list, surprise, surprise to everyone, is Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End. The thing that I thought was the most mind-blowing about this novel, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about the most, is this idea that for humans to be creative and for us to have motivation and ingenuity, we require struggle and strife. And if those things, those struggles are taken away, like, I don't know, an alien species comes down and gives us everything we've ever wanted without any price to pay, our ingenuity, our creativity, our ability to create and innovate disappears. This concept blew my mind with this book. I absolutely loved it. I thought about it for days and days, and to be honest, I still think about how true that is. Now, there are a lot of other things to love about this book, as there are with all of the books, but this one idea just really got me. I'm going to shuffle these books here a little bit. The next book on my list is The Sparrow. This book was one that at first it wasn't my favorite. And then I really started to simmer on these concepts and found something that really blew my mind. And the idea of first contact, the idea that human curiosity leads to our quest for knowledge, our quest to first contact, to get to those sentient creatures and know who they are and what they're like, is selfish. First contact is selfish, and it can totally ruin an entire civilization, and it's irrevocable, and it can never be undone. The idea that the quest for knowledge in humanity is something that we should be questioning, and the ends does not always justify the knowledge that we get, is a really deep theme in this book. It is not spoon-fed to you. It takes some time to really wrap your brain around it. Just have thought about it forever after. I had never encountered that idea before, and it was definitely very prevalent in this book, and is definitely something that I would recommend. The next book on my list is Foundation by Isaac Asimov. Foundation blew my mind with a couple of different concepts that are all interlinked. The first is the idea that one individual and the decision that they make can change civilization and humanity and history is interesting and spectacular. And I've encountered that in many different books, but in this book, I really fundamentally understood that a single person could change something. In all of these decisions throughout this book, because that's kind of what the plot is, we're watching as each individual per chapter makes a big decision that does subsequently change all of human civilization and what history is going to look like, and also what the future is going to look like. And the thing that blew my mind about this concept is that sometimes it's not the decision, sometimes it's not action, sometimes doing nothing is the most important thing.
Nothing.
Yeah, so that means not making a decision, not taking action, instead sitting and not being reactionary and letting it happen. That is definitely an idea that is not a popular one in novels because it doesn't make for a great hero's journey. But there were several chapters in this novel where it was important that they do nothing, which definitely blew my mind. Then we have a book that I read very recently, and that is John Wyndham's Trouble with Lichen. The thing that blew my mind about this book is that we asked ourselves the question within this book of, should we share with the world this big, important technological event or biological thing that happened? In this book, we discover a cure for aging, or we can at least slow aging. And one of the questions that all the researchers asked is, how do we reveal this to the public? How do we share our knowledge with everyone when this is going to cause world wars? Governments and people and all of the world powers are going to fight over and burn the world around us for this knowledge. So how can we disseminate it amongst the public? And the mind-blowing aspect of this book is to hide it in plain sight. They opened a beauty parlor. That's right, a women's spa. And they said, we'll prolong your life. They said it. They told everybody. And you know what they did? Everyone ignored it. They marginalized it because the beauty industry is marginalized. But what a perfect place to hide some of these innovations. By the time people realized that they actually were onto something, you know, like 50 years later when their clients really weren't aging, wow, by then it would already be disseminated. By then they would have openings in multiple countries around the world and with all the major powers, and that way they could distribute it without causing a giant debacle and burning of the world. I thought this idea was truly inspired and intriguing, and such a short book and so prescient and so interesting in talking about what's marginalized and what's not. This book blew my mind, really did. Wow, it's another Arthur C. Clarke. This one is Rendezvous with Rama. This is kind of going to be an unpopular opinion. What blew my mind about this book wasn't the plot. There is a quick mention of a creature at the very end of this book called a biot. And this biot is the thing that blew my mind. I know, I'm sorry, but these biots are a combination of biology and robots. They are not actually robots. You should know that there's nothing mechanized about this creature. It has developed, looks like seemingly over a Darwinian evolution, over time, to not even eat or drink, to not have sentience, to not be intelligent, but for one purpose and one purpose only. And all of these creatures develop or absorb sunlight, and that's how they get energy. And through that, they don't eat, they don't sleep, they don't poop. All they do is whatever it is that they have been evolved to do, whether it be cleanup or whether it be building something particular. And all of the creatures in Rama were something that was like a robot or like an automaton, but they were biologic. This idea blew my mind because we talk a lot in science fiction about how technology, robots, AI are going to replace humans. Humans are going to become obsolete. But this is the opposite idea. This is the idea that biology makes AI and robots obsolete. This is something that I had never actually considered, and I had never seen done well before I had read this book. So while I understand that this is probably going to be a little bit unpopular, wow, what an interesting idea, right? Next is going to be the book Calculating God by Robert Sawyer. This book really blew my mind with the concept of asking yourself, if you truly have a diehard belief in something, what would it take and how much proof would you require to change your mind? Now, he does it, of course, with beliefs about God, and we have an atheist who is challenged in that belief to believe in God, which is a fun juxtaposition, because usually it's the other way around, right? But especially for science fiction, I think it's a really interesting idea if you take this concept and just apply it to anything, any deep belief you have. What would it take, and how much proof would you need to change your mind? I love this idea. It absolutely blew my mind. I really appreciate this book for putting this question in my thoughts. Then, of course, I have the last two books. The second to last book is The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. I haven't read the rest of the series yet, but this particular book is really popular and it does blow my mind. The idea and concept that an alien invasion can win by pulling the rug out from under our most basic scientific tenets. It basically pulled the rug out from under our scientists and our understanding of the world around us. And in doing so, it made all of our greatest minds unmotivated. And so we did not innovate any longer. And some people even took their own lives because they found it pointless. And in taking away our innovations, this leaves room for the alien species to come and invade us and take over our planet. What an incredibly thought out, innovative plan. And how do they do this? Wait, how do they execute it? By sending a proton? Is it a proton? It's some kind of molecule. They send a single molecule or a single particle to Earth that spreads or something, and it does this really crazy concept. This idea of ruining our technological innovation is very similar to childhood's end in many ways, and I really found this concept fantastic. And I don't know that I ever would have thought of it this way. And last but not least is, of course, my main man, Adrian Tchaikovsky. The thing that was so mind-blowing about this book is not just the evolution, but watching these spider creatures create a technology and a written word, if you will, a way to record their thoughts and a way to progress and advance scientifically that is very unique to them. You know, it's interesting because this book points it out very well, and it shows it that humans wanted these creatures to invent things the way that we did it. And instead they invent space travel in a whole new, very creative way, and they invent writing, and they invent all these different technologies that we don't have, or they did it in a roundabout sort of way. And I really appreciated that about this book, and my mind was 100% blown by this idea of creating alternative technologies. That does it for my mind-blowing list. Tell me what you were mind blown by any of these books, and if you have any other recommendations. I also ask for your forgiveness and apologize a little bit. A lot of these ideas may not necessarily be mind-blowing to you, but they were when I read these books. So I hope to add to this list soon, and until next time, you guys, see you later.